Alright, my friends, welcome to the channel. This is just kind of a mishmash of all the things I've been posting in my community section on YouTube. But these things are so interesting, guys, and I really just see how everything's coming together right now. All the symbolism that they're using in both the music, the movies, the sports, it's all coming together. So this video is going to be about the poem The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, The Color Purple, and the Vikings or Norse mythology, mostly Odin, the one-eyed god who has the ravens. So all these subjects are tied together. Also, I'm going to tie in Kamala Harris, Taylor Swift, and, well, football, because this is really going to be about football and what I'm expecting might happen for the Super Bowl 57. So the first thing you guys need to know to preface this is that The Raven, or the poem written by Edgar Allan Poe, which the Baltimore Ravens pretty much get their name from and their color, is almost a direct match in all the ciphers to Kamala. And if you guys remember, Kamala wore purple, like the Ravens wear purple, and she wore purple at the inauguration, okay? So just keep that in your mind as I go through this. But I'm going to show you how this rabbit and raven symbolism is very interesting, because I found this after doing some research, because I was finding a lot of things tied to Lewis Carroll's rabbit going down a rabbit hole, which I've talked about in my last videos and my last posts, but also The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. And I found this illusion that you can find on the internet saying this picture, asking people, is this a rabbit or a raven? It's an illusion, because to me, I can definitely tell it's a raven only because of the beak, but if you really look closely, it looks like a rabbit also. So it's interesting that this is on the internet, and you can just easily do a search, rabbit and raven, and this will come up. But I'm going to show you how this ties together with both the ravens, or the raven, and Alice in Wonderland in the rabbit hole. So anyways, let's move forward. The first thing I want to mention here is that there's this show that just premiered yesterday called Wednesday, and it's based off the Addams family, Wednesday Addams, the young girl in the Addams family. And this is just so obvious, guys, because Wednesday is named after Odin or Woden, the Norse god, okay? Also the equivalent of Mercury in Roman mythology. But Woden's day is Wednesday. And just notice that Minnesota, and the reason I'm bringing up Minnesota is because Minnesota has the team, the Vikings, the Minnesota Vikings, and they wear purple, just like the Ravens wear purple, okay? And the Super Bowl might be a purple bowl, essentially. And don't be surprised if that's what they end up calling it. If this is what we get, two teams that wear purple, they might actually call it the Purple Bowl. But anyways, just notice that Minnesota, who has the Vikings as their team, is a direct match in 3 out of the 4 ciphers to Woden's Day, which is a tie to the Vikings and Norse mythology and Odin, okay, who has the ravens. In Norse mythology, Odin has 2 ravens, okay? So again, you have the Viking Odin and you have the 2 ravens, and both the Minnesota Vikings and the Ravens wear purple, and Minnesota is a direct match to Woden's Day. And then you have this show that just came out called Wednesday. And in this show, thank you to a subscriber who posted about this show. I really appreciate all you guys helping out. Also, I want to give a big shout out to Rambo over at the Truth Codes, because without him, I would not be able to put all these things together. Go check his channel out, see what he's talking about. And he gave me most of the leads on this, and I'm just taking it and showing more evidence. So anyways, this Wednesday TV series is all about the purple and the black, which is what the Ravens wear, but also it literally references the poem by Edgar Allan Poe called The Raven, because the academy that the Addams family goes to is called Nevermore. And in the poem, well, first of all, here's a picture of Odin and Woden's Day, okay? But in the poem, Edgar Allan Poe, the first time we actually hear from the raven, or hear that it's a raven, because in the beginning of the poem, we don't know who it is knocking at his door. Remember, this is the poem that starts with "Once upon a midnight dreary," that famous saying. And he's trying to figure out who's tapping at his door, and it ends up being a raven. But the first time we know it's a raven, the raven says "nevermore," and it's a line that's repeated. And just notice, guys, that Baltimore, just notice that the more at the end, it's "nevermore" is the phrase in the Raven poem, and Baltimore is the Ravens, the football team. And notice that Baltimore and Nevermore, right? So it's clear that they got so much symbolism from this poem. Okay, and I'm going to come back to this and talk about Plutonian, because this has to do with the Antichrist and the Revelations connections. But let's move forward for a minute. So the Ravens' most famous player is Ray Lewis, and this is not only tied to the Raven poem, but also to the Rabbit and Lewis Carroll, because the most famous Ravens football player is Lewis, and the guy who wrote the Adventures in Wonderland, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, about the rabbit hole, his name was Lewis. Okay, and notice that rabbit equals 52, Minnesota, where the Vikings are, what I just talked about, and Nevermore, the phrase continually repeated in this poem, all equal 52, and Ray Lewis wore the number 52. And this is so much bigger than just these guys. It's the 52 is tied to the rabbit, but it's also tied to the Pope, because Pope equals 52. And again, the Pope has a big part of this, but I'm not going to talk a lot about that right now. But I just want you guys to see the symbolism here and how it's tied to both the rabbit and the raven. And I just showed you that illusion about whether that's a rabbit or a raven. Okay? But notice that Minnesota has the 52, which goes with the year of the rabbit, which we're about ready to start, and goes with the poem, The Raven, where they repeat the phrase "nevermore." Okay? But now I want to talk about, if we go back, guys, I want to talk about something that caught my attention. Is right before we hear that it's a raven, the first time we hear that it's a raven in the poem, he mentions something called a Plutonian shore. And this caught my attention because plutonium is Hades, or Pluto, the god of the underworld, okay, or hell, or the Antichrist, I guess you could say. And this is perfect because this Plutonian is something I never really looked into, and I never really heard it. There's the element called plutonium, but then I saw this phrase Plutonian, and I just had to decode it. So look how this ties perfectly together, guys. So Plutonian is a direct match to Baltimore, okay? And Baltimore is a direct match to Ray A. Lewis, which is the football player I just showed you that wears 52. If you use his middle initial, A, you get a 41, like Baltimore and like Plutonian. Also notice, to tie with the rabbit in the Adventures in Wonderland, plutonium equals 122, just like Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. And Rambo has a video talking a lot about this combination of the 122 and the 41. I'll let you guys go watch that yourself. But either way, guys, these are references to these same concepts, the rabbit and the raven, the Norse mythology. Okay, and then just what's the chances that Plutonian matches Baltimore and the most famous Baltimore player on the Ravens in history? And he wears the number 52, which connects to the rabbit, which connects back to the poem, which connects to Minnesota. And remember, Minnesota Vikings and Baltimore Ravens both wear purple. And this is where it brings me again back to this illusion of the rabbit and the raven. Both of them start with R's, okay, the 1-8, which is the 18th letter. So there's a lot to say about that, but the rabbit and the raven. But let's talk about this Plutonian again. Notice that the word Plutonian equals 121 and 49, like Antichrist, like Revelation, like the Great Seal. and like Kamala Harris and like Donald J. Trump. And remember, Kamala Harris wore purple. I just showed you that her name matches the raven. I also told you in prior videos that Kamala Harris's dad's name is Donald J. Harris, just like Donald J. Trump. But notice that Donald J. Trump and Kamala Harris both equal 49, like Antichrist, like Revelation, like the Great Seal. Okay, like Plutonian, which is mentioned in this poem. But one thing I want to really mention here is this, what brings it all together. So recently, Taylor Swift, the famous artist, released an album called Midnights. And in this poem, guys, it's all about, it starts out with the phrase, once upon a midnight dreary. Okay? And Taylor Swift releases this album on 10/21, which is 1/21. Okay? And the first song on the album is called Lavender Haze, which is purple, guys. Lavender is purple. So again, we have this connection to the purple, and we have this connection to Midnights, which is a connection to the poem. Now, notice that the phrase, the name of the album, Midnights, is again a direct match with the 49 to Antichrist, Revelation, Donald J. Trump, and Kamala Harris. But also notice that Plutonian also has that 49, but the phrase Lavender Haze, which is the name of the first song on the album, equals 1/21, again, like Revelation, Antichrist, and all the rest, okay? And the song is 322 long, which is the skull and bones number, guys, and the skull and bones number ties back to the 41s I mentioned before, because skull and bones equals 41 in the same cipher as Baltimore, okay? And notice that the third song on the album is Antihero, which actually has also strong match to Antichrist. Okay, so, and then the second song is a color maroon, which there's probably something to dig in on that, but I'm just focusing on the purple here. And this album supposedly had a bunch of songs on the album in the top 10. It was so popular. Okay, but I also want you to notice the 322 of the first song, Lavender Haze. Well, that's Skull and Bones. Well, also the Super Bowl this year, where I'm saying is going to be a purple versus purple team, and the song's called Lavender, which is purple. Well, that Super Bowl happens on the 322 days left in the year. So what's the chances, guys, that the Super Bowl is happening on the day leaving 322, and I'm saying it might be two purple teams playing, and the song's called Lavender, which is purple. Okay? So to me, it's very clear, guys. And I hope this is very easy to understand. I don't want to make this too long. But really, there's a lot more to say. There's always more to say. But I hope you guys understood. Hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. I'll see you guys in the next video.